Well, hi there, and welcome to How to Get Media Attention When No One Knows Who the Hell You Are. Or maybe they know who you are, but it's you've hit some sort of plateau and you really want to grow those numbers. Well, if that's the case, you have come to the right place. My name is Joanne McCall, and I've been called a media insider because I've worked that side of the fence for a number of years. I had my own interview show for quite a while and interviewed many different people, and noticed at some point that I gravitated toward authors. They were interesting, they were fun to talk to, they had great information, and were fabulous on the show. Fast forward a few years later, and I found that I really wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. I wanted to have my own business. And because of the show, I had publicists far and wide pitching me. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, that person is great. And oh, wow, that person is terrible. And then I thought, I could do that. So I launched McCall Media Group a number of years ago now and have never looked back. I am thrilled to be working with authors who want to get their books out there and want to get known. Many of them, in addition to a book, have a business that they're also promoting. So we figure out how to get tons of exposure for both. Now, I've had the privilege of working with some of the best out there, including Brian Tracy, Ken Blanchard, Janine Roth, Dave Ramsey, the Deepak Chopra Center for Wellbeing, and the founder of NLP, Dr. Richard Bandler. Some really amazing people. I love authors, and that's why I'm doing this. So, let's get started. We are at a very, very interesting point in time. The truth is, anyone can stand up these days. The trick is, how are you going to stand out? I mean, look at all the smiley faces here. They all look nice, but no one stands out beyond the others. They look the same. Anyone can build a website, open social media channels, start blogging, create a podcast, and all the other tools that are at our fingertips now. The tools have democratized. They're cheap, and anyone and everyone who has an opinion can start sharing it with the world. However, just because you're standing up doesn't mean you'll be seen. There is a huge crowd standing up these days. So standing out from all of that noise and clutter, that is really the question of the day. This is a little bit better. So another critical point to understand is that while the tools have democratized, the techniques definitely have not. In other words, many are standing up, speaking out, and doing it very badly. I mean, when's the last time you saw a really bad live stream on Facebook or a really bad video in general? Probably not all that long ago. They're everywhere. Maybe someone you know posted one and you think, why on earth would they post that? And then people wonder why they're being completely ignored, or they're not even being seen to be ignored. That's not such a good situation. It's not enough to just get media attention. You have to be ready for it. You have to be able to deliver. If media comes to you and you can't deliver, not only are they going to go away and find someone else, they may remember you and not in the way you want them to. So you have to be ready. Now, this has always been the case, by the way. It's just more critical now, and more people are standing up just expecting media to come to them. Hey, I wrote the book. It's fantastic. Get me media attention. Don't be that person. And it doesn't work that way, because unless you're already really, really well trained and good at it, it just doesn't work. You have to get that kind of training. So when you look at all the people standing up, there is a sea of white sheep out there. They all look alike. They all sound alike. And then standing out is a red sheep, just like in this graphic. Now we want you to be the red sheep. That's the one that gets noticed. The one where media is looking out onto a sea of white sheep, and then they see you, the red sheep. And are you ready? The truth is, if you're a red sheep and you're standing out, you are ready. So how do we make sure that that is the case, that you are indeed ready? Well, there are three critical elements to embrace when it comes to becoming a red sheep, and they are as follows. Number one is positioning. Number two, hooks and sound bites. And number three, the 10 media channels. These three elements are to be embraced before you ever approach the media so that you don't create more problems for yourself. Now, if you plan to hire a publicist in the future, Either make sure your publicist knows how to help you with this crucial part of the process, including media training, or get the strategic positioning and other work done with someone else first. There are publicists who specialize only in getting media. They don't know how to do the training. They don't know how to make you look your best. They simply pitch and land media, which is great. But if you aren't ready, I mean, I sound like a broken record practically, but if you aren't ready, it can create its own set of problems for you, such as the following. You blow it. No, no, no. Yeah, they blow it and they never come to you again. You don't know your key messages. You can't deliver in an informative, entertaining, easy to understand way. There's nothing unique about your message. Or you embarrass yourself. We've all been embarrassed. It's no fun. You look like an amateur, not a pro. Mom was right. First impressions matter. In our current world, you can't reel it all back in. If you blow it, it stays out there. It's not like the old days where you do a TV interview and if it doesn't go once the show is over, it's over. Oh no. The show has been uploaded, it's been recorded on DVRs, or someone finds it when searching for you 5 years later, and there it is, something you hoped had disappeared. So, what do you do? Well, we're all agreed that we don't want any of those problems. So let's get into those three elements that I spoke of, beginning with positioning. Well, what does that mean anyway, positioning? The definition of positioning your book is this. It's a communication tool to reach target customers in a crowded marketplace. This is needed for your potential readers, but it is also needed to capture media attention. It's how you distinguish yourself from all the other books and authors out there. Whatever the subject matter of your book, you have competition, or niche mates, as I call them. Niche mates are people who share the same space as you and ultimately could become venture partners with you, but that's a different course for a different day. You want to find a way to position your books differently than your competitors or niche mates in order to stand out. Positioning is more important than ever because media is inundated with people trying to get their attention. They've heard it all many, many times before, so they love new angles. They love a new take. They love new positioning. You are doing them a favor to come up with something great. So, for example, every January there are 50 new diet books. Why? Well, first of all, January is all about diet and fitness. According to media stories, the average person gains 7 to 10 pounds over the holidays. That's that stretch of time between Thanksgiving and January. So January is the month that most people want to take off that extra weight. Now, one little side note. According to scientific studies, the average weight gain is only 1 pound during that period. So I thought good news should be shared here. Media sometimes like to share their own ideas about things, meaning the 7 to 10 pound weight gain. But whether it's 1 pound or 10 pounds, most people have extra pounds to lose, and they often feel heavier after all the partying over the holidays. So January 1st is a great date to get going. New year, new you, after all. So whatever the reason, people are looking at diet books. There are lots to choose from. How is it possible that so many diet books can be successful? Well, first of all, not all of them are. But the diet books that are successful have been positioned correctly and have reached their target market. They're unique. I remember one year the blood type diet was introduced. Blood type. Really? That book was successful. It was an angle that had never been used before, and media jumped all over it. So, now what? What do you do to position your book? How do you figure this out? Well, here are some suggestions. First of all, get curious. Put on your detective hat and research all the other books out there on your topic. Let's say you've written a book on personal finances. Then reach all the other books on personal finances. Go ahead and research them. And if there are too many, and there probably are, so pick the ones published within, say, the last 3 to 5 years. That'll still keep you pretty busy. Or maybe you have a book on relationships. Take a look at the relationship books out there. John Gottman is probably the foremost authority on relationships and marriage. There are a lot of them, but don't be discouraged. You are researching the following. How are they positioning themselves? And what are they saying that is unique about themselves? Now, you'll need to look at several different books to begin to see the patterns and the uniqueness of each. So write down what you discover and then ask yourself, how is my book different? Or how can my book be different? It's not enough to go to the media and say, I have written this book on personal finances, which will help people to be successful during this economy. Way too vague. Or, I have a book that will help solve the obesity epidemic. Again, not specific enough. You want to be very specific as to how your approach is different from everyone else out there and how can you position yourself differently from the rest of them. This is really, really crucial. I had a client who wrote a book called The Joy of Financial Security. The title was a play off of two other books, The Joy of Cooking and The Joy of Sex. Her book, The Joy of Financial Security, was unique because she combined both the tips on how to become financially secure with statistics on happiness and ultimately how to be happy with your finances, which for many people they are not. So her angle was unique and it got a lot of play with the media. Now, another way to position your book is through comparison. Comparison is simply taking one, two, or three things and comparing something else to them, thereby offering a kind of shorthand description of what it's all about. So, for example, this book is a cross between Andrew Weil's Eat Right and Julia Child's French Cooking. Or another way to look at it is Gabby Bernstein is the next Marianne Williamson for the next generation. Not sure how Marianne feels about that one, but it is the positioning that has helped Gabby tremendously. The first time I ever heard of Gabby, the friend who told me about her used that exact description. Then when I went to her website, I actually saw that description written out. I can't imagine a comparison working better than that. Having a reader actually quote the positioning statement as a way of describing her to me. It's perfect. So when customers and media use your comparison on their platforms and in their stories, then you know you've got the right comparison going. So here's another example. I have an author I'm working with who works in the purpose field, which is a very, very crowded space. What we came up with in terms of positioning for him made such a huge difference, not only for capturing media, but for everyone we spoke with, including Zach himself. It eliminated all kinds of confusion and time trying to get the point across as to how he is different from everyone else out there. Remember, positioning isn't only for media and your readers, it's for you too. It can make all the difference in how you speak about your book and your understanding of your own uniqueness. Now, for Zach, it cleared his own mind as to who he is and what he's doing. It caused him to change his website, his speaker packet, and his media kit to reflect this new understanding. He himself got what he was about, and others did too. It helped him to not only get media he wasn't able to get before, but also new speaking gigs and other opportunities. So, what was the comparison we used? Now, don't be fooled by the simplicity here. Some of the biggest ahas are very, very simple, and it took us a couple of sessions to really get to it. So here it is. Zach Mercurio picks up where Simon Sinek leaves off. Simon gets you excited about having a why. Zach then comes in with the specific steps for putting your why into action. Now remember, we're working in the purpose space here, so even if you personally don't know who Simon Sinek is, media and others who are interested in purpose know about Simon. He's huge. They didn't know about Zach yet, so we had to raise awareness. And being able to hook onto Simon's name gave us that. Zach became a red sheep. So when it comes to positioning your book, find a comparison that works with your potential audience. It can be a total game changer for you. The next important element of becoming the red sheep is element number 2, the great use of hooks and sound bites. Notice we have a cute puppy on the left. Cute puppies hook a lot of people. There's no doubt about it. We live in an extremely noisy world, and if you can't get to the point right away and succinctly say who you are and what your book is about, what value you offer, and why anyone should care, you become the white sheep again. You become part of that white noise, and we don't want that. So what is a hook? A hook is the thing that grabs you. like a cute puppy. Have you ever been listening to a new song for the first time and it gets to a certain part and you say, "Oh, I love that. I have to have that song." They hooked you. Usually it's in the chorus, but not always. How about the last time you were scanning Facebook or some online platform and something caught your attention and caused you to click on a link? Some call it clickbait, which I've never liked that term myself, but it is a hook and it caused you to take action. That is a hook. So, in this noisy world, how are we going to capture someone's attention with regard to your book? How do you do it? Well, let me ask you this. What causes you to stop and read a post or click on a link? What hooks you? You may not be conscious of it yet, but you will be now. Pay attention to headlines because they're almost always hooks. If you're in the grocery store and they still have magazines by the checkout and you're waiting for your turn, read the headlines. If there is one headline that causes you to pick up the magazine and look at it, that's a hook. Maybe you're scanning your social media feed while in line. If you're about to click on a link, stop yourself and look at why. What was the headline or what was the picture that caused you to want to explore this further? Learn from this. It grabbed you. Now, think about your market. Who wants your book? Who is it for? What would hook them? What can you say about you, your work, and your book that would grab your target market's attention? That's what you want to discover, develop, and come up with. If you have a community or group, by the way, this is the kind of question you can ask them and get feedback about. If you have a tribe, let them help you. So, what are sound bites and what are they for? Well, think about it this way. In this day and age of people being incredibly busy and often in overwhelm, no one has time to try and figure out who you are and what you're trying to say. You have to be able to summarize your book and your work in a compelling and intriguing way in mere seconds that captures their attention, and that's on you. One recent news contact of mine said, if you can't express what you want and why it's newsworthy in 10 seconds, your email is deleted or you're off the phone. And he's not kidding. So here is an exercise you can play with in order to come up with some potential sound bites. Are you ready? Imagine you're being interviewed by a reporter. He or she is asking you questions. You may share some stories and information, and let's say when it's transcribed, it totals about 1,000 words. Then what happens is the reporter picks 8 words out of everything you've said, and that's what she or he uses on the air in the story. They take a bite out of your sound, hence the term soundbite. Why did they pick those particular 8 words? Because they fit a particular category of speech, and it was something only you could say, not the reporter. There are speech patterns that are used all the time and they stand out. So knowing that as you're being interviewed, you want to be thinking about how to package what you're saying into bundles that are compelling and interesting. Now, if you're being interviewed for a half-hour podcast, they'll run all your words. But even then, you want to pepper the interview with words and bites that stick, that stand out, that are memorable. This is a real skill and one of the reasons you'll get media attention, but you have to develop this first before you go out there. You have to be interesting. You can't be boring. We cannot be boring. And if you have a publicist, he or she isn't going to be able to do much for you unless you can deliver during the interviews. And that includes interviews with print journalists and bloggers beyond those with a microphone. Sound bites are always important. So what makes a good sound bite? Sound bites can be talking points, stories, vignettes, facts, statistics, anecdotes. They are often shocking and provocative, moving and memorable. They are essential messages, and they need to be a natural part of the conversation. Think of them as the sizzle on the steak. You wouldn't want to do an interview of all sound bites. That would be extremely annoying. But sound bites are like a spice that is used in cooking, a little dash of this and a little dash of that. Okay? For example, I was listening to an interview not long ago with a relationship expert, and she made the powerful statement, in relationships, perfection equals pure fiction. Perfection equals pure fiction. And that's what I mean by dense meaning or a robust bundle of meaning in just a few words. That's an easy one to remember. I've remembered it all this time. In relationships, perfection equals pure fiction. And anyone who has been in a relationship really gets that too. So, what you want to do is to take each of your key messages and create a robust soundbite that is very sticky, meaning memorable. So, what are those speech patterns I mentioned? All right, here we go. We have a list. Sound bites can be similes, metaphors, and analogies. An example: it's as if Republicans and Democrats are planning a trip, but they disagree over whether you should start the trip from Rio de Janeiro or Greenland. Sound bites can come in triples. We help ordinary people get rich without working on Wall Street, inheriting wealth, or marrying a millionaire. You see, it's a funny thing. As human beings, we tend to like triples. There's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Body, mind, and spirit. 1, 2, 3. Do, re, mi, etc. You get the idea. Rhetorical questions. More than 600,000 Americans lost their jobs last month. How many more families need to lose their economic lifeline for Congress to act? Contrasts, conflicts, or paradoxes. Our food is fresh. Our customers are spoiled. It's a good one. That's from Fresh Direct, which is an online grocer. Soundbites can express certainty or power. We are in this to win. Superlatives. This is the biggest technological advance in 50 years in the oil business. Pop culture. I'll have what she's having. May the force be with you. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Play it again, Sam. There's no place like home. Go ahead, make my day. You get the idea. Emotions. As a New Yorker, I am absolutely horrified by what happened in my city last night. A surprise twist. This one comes from President Ronald Reagan diffusing accusations that he was too old for a second term. He said, "I will not exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience." Brilliant. Tweaked cliches. Money doesn't grow on trees, but it does grow faster in credit unions without those greedy big bank fees. So those are some common speech patterns that are used on a regular basis for the creation of sound bites. So now what? How do you create sound bites for your book? Well, I have a little formula for you. Now, don't let that scare you. I know it looks scary, doesn't it? It's like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? Whoa, takes me back to algebra. Okay, don't panic. The good news is this. It's actually very easy. It's a whole lot easier than this graphic. The formula is this. It's your key message plus one of those speech patterns equals a soundbite. So think about your own book. What are its key messages? Write them all down. Then look over the speech patterns that we just listed. And as you go through each key message, is there a common speech pattern that you can use to succinctly make your point? Could you use a metaphor or triples or a unique twist? These will be your sound bites. And listen, don't get discouraged. If you don't get this in the first half hour or the first day or even the first week, some of these evolve as you continue thinking about them and as you talk about your book. Be aware that that's what you're looking for, a short, succinct way to get your key message across. Your mind will continue to mull this over, percolate on what it is you want to create, and then often when you're thinking about something totally unrelated, or you're in the shower or driving down the street, bam, a great soundbite just appears, just drops in out of nowhere. You know how creativity works. Then make sure you have a way to capture your brilliance. I like using the recording device on my phone. Some carry a notepad with them. Whatever you decide to use is fine. Just make sure you have a way to capture those ideas because they can be a little like a dream and can just fade away, and you don't want that to happen. Once you create your sound bites, it doesn't mean you'll use all of them in every interview that you do. You'll want to pick and choose which ones you'll use in any given situation. That will depend on a number of different factors, including what kind of questions you're being asked, the tone of the interview, and your intuition, what feels right to you. Have them absolutely memorized so they come off easily and they sound spontaneous and they add to what you're already saying. They make the point. They are the sizzle on the steak. It also takes some practice, but you'll get there. Here are a few more tips for great sound bites. Your soundbite must be a grabber, a memorable message that makes the audience want to buy your book, champion your cause, and become your tribe, or simply just listen more intently. They should be somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds long. They should explain who you are, what you're about, what your book is about, and why you make a difference. Customize your sound bites for different occasions. And I repeat, know them really, really well so that when you say them, it sounds spontaneous, not rehearsed. And also, you should sound full of excitement. Okay? So what's interesting about these elements, and again, there are 3 of them. We've covered 2 so far. We've covered positioning and hooks and sound bites, is that they build upon one another, and they all play into helping you become the red sheep. Remember, that's what we're looking for. You, the red sheep, the one that stands out, the one that's unique. It's possible to have the positioning really working for you and you have that red sheep factor. But then if you suddenly become long-winded and you don't have a hook or any sound bites, you may find yourself sliding back into white sheep obscurity. Positioning can be absolutely life-changing, but without the other piece, hooks and sound bites, you won't be fully successful. That's how these elements are like building blocks. Each builds upon the other, which brings us to the third element, by the way, those 10 media channels. First of all, what is a media channel and what are the 10 channels? Well, a media channel is simply a way for reaching your audience. It's a pathway to reach the people you have identified as those you want to reach. It's a road. It's a channel. Back in the early to mid 90s and before, there were 3 channels: radio, TV, print. They're all still there, but more channels are now in the mix, definitely. There are online journalists, there are bloggers, there are podcasters, we have influencers, we have social media, we have video, we have online TV and media, and many more channels that are sure to arrive soon. I mean, this is an ever-evolving process. Keep in mind here that I've grouped social media into one channel, but that could be easily broken down into individual channels such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, etc., etc. As for influencers, these are people who have good-sized communities, and the people in their communities listen to the influencer. When he or she has you on their podcast or blog or whatever the platform is or whatever the tool is, the halo effect is in place. If the influencer promotes you, others will listen. Therefore, they are their own media channel. So what channels are right for you? What channels should you be involved in? Because the good news is that you don't have to be involved in all of them. Now, I realize to some experts out there that might be a horrible thing to say, but it's true. You don't have to be everywhere all the time, but you do have to be involved in the channels that make the most sense for you. So how do you determine which are the most important channels for you? After all, each of us only has so much time and so much energy. So we want to do what makes the most sense. We want to take your time, we want your energy, your passion, and we want to distribute them in a way that will be the most effective for you and your book and will bring you the best return. All right, so here are the 2 questions to ask yourself. Where does your target market hang out? And what do you love to do? Let's start with the first one. Where does your target market hang out? Now, if I ask you who your book is for and you respond with everyone, well, then I know you don't have it yet, because no book is for everyone, not even the Bible, not the dictionary, no book. Your first step is to figure out who your audience is. If you don't know that yet, then that is your first order of business. And it's not only who would read your book, but who is likely to refer your book. For example, some therapists refer certain books to their patients. Some financial planners refer certain books to their clients. So who will buy your book and who will refer your book? This is very important. Now, assuming you do know the answer to that question, then it's time to do some research and some investigating. There are those experts who say you have to be visible in all the various media channels, but again, that simply is not true. Of course, those who make their living making sure you are everywhere will disagree with that. But all I find when people try to be everywhere is that they end up being almost nowhere. In other words, they're everywhere only badly and sparsely. I've seen many who ended up feeling overwhelmed, underimpressed, stressed, and wondering what kind of ROI they're getting for all their blood, sweat, and tears. Hey, that's another triple, by the way. Blood, sweat, and tears. That's a triple. Anyway, it isn't worth it and it doesn't work. So since you don't have to be everywhere all the time, you do have to be where your target market hangs out. So if your ideal customers and readers love Facebook, then you definitely need to have a robust presence on Facebook. If they love Instagram, then you should be there. If you have a very visual book or topic, that's another reason for Instagram and Pinterest. They're very visual mediums. If you hate to tweet and you don't understand Twitter and you can't fathom why anyone would be interested in what you're having for lunch, then forget about it. There's no point in forcing yourself to do it. It won't be any fun. You will come to resent it. And how is that helpful? It's not. So the only caveat to that is that until you spend some time with something, such as one of these platforms, you may not ever know how much you might really love it. It's possible if you spent some time with Twitter, just playing with it, a light bulb might go off and you might discover that it could be a really great way to promote your book. Now, that's a decision you'll have to make. But the point is, you don't have to be everywhere all the time. And it's good to make some decisions about what you will and what you will not do. And that really points to question number 2. Remember, as I said earlier, there are 2 questions you have to ask yourself. Pay attention to what you really love to do and do that. You don't have to tweet out every hour to have a presence on Twitter, although some of the so-called experts will tell you that you do. Hey, just take an hour and write out all 24 tweets, then simply schedule them to go out once an hour throughout the day and throughout the night, and then do it again tomorrow. Well, that's nice, but is it really necessary? I mean, that advice is really for major brands like Coca-Cola and Southwest Airlines. They have entire teams working on social media, but it really isn't an advice for you or for me. So what do you love to do? Do you love doing radio and podcast interviews? Then book those shows. Do you love being on camera? Book TV shows or online web interviews. Do you love to write, start a blog, or do more guest blogging? Do what you love, because doing that will bring you some joy as you work to build all of this out. It doesn't work to do things that you hate to do. I know this seems simplistic, but sometimes the most simple things are the most profound. And when you have an expert telling you, you have to do this and you have to do that, you feel like you should do it. I mean, you're paying them after all. You're paying them money, and maybe they really do know what's right for you. So I'm telling you something else. 2 questions. Find out where your audience hangs out and do what you love. There's no shortage of things to do, so it comes down to those 2 questions. And by the way, there are many, many good experts out there who can help you via social media or whatever their expertise is in. I'm not disparaging anyone, just the ones who make it sound like you have to do everything. I just don't believe that's true, and I haven't seen it work, and I don't even think it's possible. Certainly not if you want to have a life and you love what you're doing, right? So that brings us back to the 10 media channels: radio, TV, print, online journalists, bloggers, podcasters, influencers, social media, video, and online TV media, with more channels coming, as we've talked about. The question becomes now, what exactly is media? There are 2 major distinctions to be aware of, and they are this: you media and earned media. You media is your own content generation. It's your website, it's your blog, it's any video you record, it's your own podcast, your newsletter, your social media posts, etc. The good news with you media is that if you write a post or you record a video and you don't like it, it never has to see the light of day. You are the one in charge. You get to decide. If you want to delete it, you can. If it hits the cutting room floor, so be it. It's your decision. That's not the case with earned media. Earned media is when someone else is involved and someone else gets to make those decisions. It means there are hoops that you need to jump through to get the coverage that you want. Radio, TV, bloggers, podcasters, producers, editors, etc., they are all earned media. Now, on this slide with the picture on your left, this could be you doing a webinar where you're using the phone or some other kind of U media. The second picture is of my client, Noreen Dworkin McDaniel, when she was on the Dr. Oz show not long ago. She was talking to Dr. Oz about her book, Science of Parenthood, which was very, very exciting. And with those two groups in mind, what you want to do is build out your own U media first. Build your platform first. Have your website optimized. Keep your blog up to date if you have one, and create a newsroom or media room on your website. And it's a great idea to create an opt-in of some sort for your homepage. So your opt-in is when you create valuable information that your target audience would love to have. In order for them to receive it, the exchange is their email address. When they opt in, they are then added to your list, and then you can continue to market to them. Marketing to your own list is often where book sales are generated. People who have signed up for your information are already sold on you. They are very likely at some point going to buy your books, and this is what is meant by creating your own community or your own tribe. As an aside, it used to be that giving away the first chapter of your book was a common giveaway, but I haven't really seen that work very well over the past year or so. I think because it was becoming incredibly common and people are getting more and more sophisticated all the time. So you may want to come up with some other giveaway that would be more compelling to your audience. If you have a community, this is something you can test. Find out what they would like. Ask them. If you won't have that, do some research. And if you don't have a community, that is, then do some research and see what other similar authors are doing, or go with your gut, but test it. We're in a day and age where we can test everything, and we should. Before you do any outreach to earned media, you have to have your own platform ready, in place, and optimized. This is because any pitching you do, if you catch the attention of the media you approach, they're going to check you out first, usually before they even respond to you. You want to be prepared with the right look, the right information, and you want to come across as the pro that you are, for sure. So that's the order of things. You build out your U media first, and then you can go out in search of earned media. Prior to that, you've gotten your key messages together, your positioning within the marketplace, your hooks and sound bites. You've looked at the 10 media channels through the filter of where your market hangs out and what you love to do. Okay? Next, you can create a wish list of all the media outlets where you would love to be. Now, this wish list is actually something you could be working on at any time, and you should. This is a place where you can write down all the media outlets where it makes sense for you to be, and you can also create a list of all the pie in the sky, wouldn't that be awesome, and fabulous places where you would love to be. You want to start with the low-hanging fruit for a number of reasons. When you land the media that is the easiest for you to secure, it motivates you to keep going. It also gives you some experience and practice at doing interviews, writing articles, or whatever is being required of you. It's so much better to get experience doing interviews on a small podcast or on a radio station in Decimal Point, Wyoming, rather than starting out on the most powerful show in the universe like Ellen or Oprah's Super Soul Sunday or whatever media outlet you're dreaming of. You don't want to start there and blow it, so work up to it. One other thing to keep in mind is that those great big top-tier media folks are watching smaller blogs and smaller outlets to see what they're covering. They are looking for great guests, books to feature, etc., and so they're watching. They may not take a chance on someone who has no coverage, so get some wherever you can, beginning with the low-hanging fruit. Another important point to make here is that I see people underestimate the power of smaller blogs and other media have, preferring to go after the big stuff. And this is a mistake for a number of reasons, some of which I've already mentioned. But the fact is that many of the writers and reporters working for these outlets are required to write several stories a day. The way they get paid is generating traffic, the point being that they are always looking for good stories. You've got tremendous opportunities, but don't get all bogged down in the ego placements, such as, it's the New York Times or nothing. That's just ego talking. And often when you go for smaller outlets, the target audience is more your exact audience. In other words, millions may read the Times, and a few might be interested in your book, or you might target a magazine with only 75,000 readers, yet almost all of them may be interested in you. So what's the bigger return for you in that case? Now, once you decide what media channels make the most sense for you, then you want to create some materials like a press kit. Is an entire press kit needed anymore? Well, it depends. It depends on the book and who you've targeted. You'll want it on your website, and you'll also want to be able to email some materials. And at times, you'll actually be mailing books and materials out. Some will ask for that. As far as your website goes, it's your job to create attractive, informative, and useful materials that media can easily find on your website when they decide to do a story or segment with you. This means removing all obstacles to their finding what they need. And here are a few tips on how to do that. Clearly label the area media room or newsroom so that media will understand right away that you've created a place just to fill their needs. Include a link to your newsroom in your main navigation bar. This not only makes it easy to find, it also indicates that you realize media people are pressed for time, and it communicates that you're savvy. Put this link at either the beginning or the end of that list of navigation buttons where media people can easily see it when they're scanning for it. To make it really pop, include a graphic indicating that it's a link to your newsroom for those who are more visually oriented. And hint, most media people are. Once you've created your newsroom or media room on your website, what goes in there? So let's take a look at this. These are the press kit pieces. First of all, you want your contact info. Don't make people try to search for you. Just make it really easy. It's important that you're easily accessible to the media, particularly when you're doing outreach for coverage. Make sure the contact information you provide includes the best way to reach you. Have a phone number and an email address in your media room and on every email you send out too. News releases, interview questions, interview topics, other goodies such as quizzes or other elements that might make a good stand-along to a story. Those things can all be in your newsroom. If you have a book and a business, the company history might be appropriate. What's your story? Company profiles are basically like an About Us page. You'll want to include important facts about your company history, your mission statement, corporate philosophy, and any other relevant company information that you can think of. Case studies. Case studies boost your credibility by showing how your book has benefited readers. Make sure your case studies are factually accurate, and feel free to include images if it helps tell the story. Keep your content interesting and easy to read. Photos. You'll want both high resolution and low resolution. You need at least one headshot and a photo of your book cover. Other photos are good if they help to tell your story. For example, an artist has photos of his or her artwork. A weight loss success story can have before and after photos that can be very compelling. If you're going to offer graphics, be sure they are high quality graphics. Bios. I recommend having two versions. One is a longer bio that fully establishes your credibility and why you are a great resource for media. The other is a shorter one that can be used in a variety of ways, including as an introduction on a talk show or podcast. Make it short and to the point. 2 to 3 sentences is enough. Be sure and include other media coverage. Links to other earned media coverage. Have you and your book been featured in a magazine, a newspaper, large online media outlet? Did you do a media interview on TV or on a podcast? Having links to your media coverage boosts your credibility and gives reporters more information to work with. It also shows that you don't have 3 eyes, that you carry yourself well, you're compelling, and you are able to communicate your messages clearly and congruently. It also shows media that others have found you valuable to interview. Videos. Interviews that you've done with earned media or mock interviews that you set up, they can be every bit as valuable, particularly as you're working to get TV coverage or online web coverage. Doing a mock interview is a great thing to put in place. Okay, you can have someone just interview, have them off camera, have the camera on you, and you're answering the questions. It can be very effective. You can also have clips from speaking engagements, book trailers. All of these items are available for you. Audio files, any audio interviews you've done or that you've created yourself that speak to your message and your book. Endorsements and testimonials are critical. Endorsements and testimonials are social proof and media proof that others accept and recommend your work. Now, endorsements are different from testimonials. Testimonials generally come from your readers. People have read your book and they think that it's just the best thing ever. Endorsements generally are from professionals who they have a halo effect. So, for example, someone's looking at your book and they're looking at your endorsements and they've never heard of you yet, but you have an endorsement from a pretty well-known therapist or doctor or whatever your line is, someone well known. So they know that person and that person thinks you're great. Therefore, the potential buyer may go ahead and buy the book. They may not know you yet, but so-and-so recommended you, and that's good enough for them. It can be very, very powerful, and that's why endorsements are just really great to have. Awards and other recognition, that's definitely material that you can put in your newsroom on your website because it says more about you and it says more about your book. Have searchable archives. If you have a lot of content on your site or your blog, consider an online searchable newsroom. Journalists and reporters and other media will thank you because they just want to look up keywords and find what you've written about a particular issue. And you can also include help or facts, FAQs. Answering your most asked questions about your book and your business in your online newsroom or media room can save everyone a lot of time. It also helps media to have a better understanding of you and your business before they actually talk to you. So you can research the outlets you'd like to be on. So we're looking at databases here. And remember, Google is your friend. Some outlets will list who to contact, but many will not. These are on the websites, okay? So let's say there's some media outlet you would love to be interviewed by. You're looking on their website for the contact info. As I said, some will post it, some will not. And that's where a good media database can be very helpful. It's also something a publicist would have. The really good databases, such as Cision, can be quite expensive, and unless you plan to do a lot of publicity and produce a number of books, it may not make sense to subscribe to it. There are others out there, so you can do some research on it. A lot of this comes down to time. If you want someone else who already has the contacts and can land you some coverage, that might be the way to go. You can do it yourself, though. It just may take a little longer. So you get to decide how you want to go about that, what your budget is, and what your next moves are. I'm really here to be your cheerleader and to let you know that you can do this. It's not brain surgery, thank goodness. But you want to spend some time getting everything in place before you go out to get the coverage. If there is one point I really want to stress, it's that one. Remember, media is looking for you too. They are searching for experts all the time. Make sure your website and platform is ready and optimized so that when they find you, they are impressed with who you are and what you have to offer. Then really great coverage can come your way. If you're thinking about hiring a publicist, make sure they can help you with the positioning of your book, hooks and sound bites, as well as the 10 media channels, or help you figure out which of the 10 is best for you. Make sure he or she has worked on books within your genre. So if you have a book on parenting, they should have media contacts that cover parenting. If you have a business book, they should have media contacts covering business, etc. Feel free to visit my website and I've got this really fun little quiz. It's called the How Media Savvy Are You assessment, which will tell you how much you know about getting media and if you have any little areas that could use a little bit of work. It will help you with that. So you can check it out. The website is my name, www.joannemccall.com. And finally, I just want to wish you all the best in becoming the red sheep. I want to thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you and your book in the media. Take care.